On an island full of palm trees, songs, and colorful shells, he lived a girl named Moana. Since she was a child, she heard the sound of the waves and felt that the sea was talking to her. While everyone in the village thought it was best to stay there, taking care of the earth, Moana looked at the horizon and imagined what existed beyond. His father, the head of the island, said, "The ocean is dangerous. No one should cross Recife." But Moana felt in the heart that she was born to navigate. One day the island began to change. The plants were dried, the fish disappeared, and the wind looked sad. Moana's grandmother, who always told old stories, said something important. The goddess's heart was stolen. That's why everything is dying. And you, Moana, was chosen by the ocean to return it, even in fear. Moana climbed into a boat, took her bright heart, and left alone. The waves were big, the wind was strong, but she never gave up. In the middle of the sea, he found a demigod named Maui. He was funny, vain, and a little stubborn, but very brave. At first, he didn't want to help, but over time, Moana showed that courage does not come from the muscles, comes from the soul. Together they faced monsters, crossed storms, and reached the angry goddess. But when Moana looked into her eyes, she realized something. She wasn't bad. She was hurt because her heart had been taken. With firm hands and a sweet look, Moana returned her heart to the goddess. In an instant, the light came back. The flowers grew, the fish returned to the sea, and the island was reborn. Moana returned home different, not because it went far, but because she found out who she was. And his village, who was previously afraid of the ocean, was now sailing proudly, led by a girl who followed her inner voice. After Moana saved the island and brought life back to her people, everyone began to sail again. The canoes cut the waves, the drums played on the beaches, and the stories came to life around the fire. But one night, while looking at the starry sky, Moana saw something different. A golden star fell from the sky and plunged straight into the ocean, leaving a mysterious glow in the water. The next day, the fish began to swim in circles, and the sea turtles were lost, not knowing where to go. The sea seemed restless, as if trying to say something. Moana went to the beach and felt the water touch her feet like a whisper. Suddenly, a very old turtle appeared. His eyes were great and wise. She said, "The sky and the sea are connected. The star that fell was an old gift and is now trapped in the bottom of the dark waters. If not returned to heaven, the balance will be lost." Without thinking twice, Moana called Maui. He appeared flying in the form of a hawk, excited as always. "More adventures? I'm inside," he said with a smile. They built a new canoe, made of sacred trunks and bright leaves, blessed by the village elders. In the middle of the journey, they faced black waves, playful mermaids, and even a giant octopus that enjoyed tickling travelers. Under the sea, they discovered a hidden place, the Valley of Silence. In this place, no creature could sing or speak. Only the sound of his own heart was heard. And in the center, shining like the sun, was the bed starfish. But when trying to get her, Moana was surrounded by shadows of the deep ocean. They asked, "Why do you think you are chosen to take this light back?" Moana, without fear, responded firmly, "Because I'm not here for me. I'm here for everyone, for life at sea, the winds of the island, the children who will still sail." The shadows moved away. The star shone again and slowly climbed back to the sky. The balance was restored. Back to the island, peace reigned again. The birds danced in the air, the whales jumped into the sea, and the people smiled. Moana looked up and saw the star shining stronger than ever. She understood that her mission would never end. The world would always need someone who heard the winds, the whispers of the waves, and the forgotten songs of heaven. After the starfish returned to the sky, and the waters danced with joy, Moana had strange dreams. In the silence of the night, she saw a submerged city, made of blue crystal, hidden in the most secret depths of the ocean. One morning, a white heron landed beside him and dropped a silver shell. When Moana leaned the shell in her ear, she heard a soft voice. "The moon is crying. The city of Lumeri is sinking." Moana knew what she needed to do. Once again, he prepared his canoe, warned his grandmother with a smile, and left, this time, alone. Guided by the moonlight reflected in the sea, Moana reached a deep slit that led to the bottom of the ocean. There he found fish that shone in the dark and mysterious currents that sang in ancient languages. In the heart of the abyss, he discovered Lumeri, a city made of mirrors and pure water. Their inhabitants, the Lunamar, were sea beings with silver eyes and soft voices like night breeze, but there was sadness on their faces. The Queen of Lumeri explained, "The moon necklace, which keeps our city floating between the tides, was stolen by Morguro, the dark guardian of the forgotten slit. Without him, Lumeri will sink forever." Moana didn't hesitate. He followed the guardian's trail, swimming for cold mazes, facing currents that tried to pull it down and caves where time seemed to stop. Morguro was immense, made of rocks, broken shells, and dead corals. He roared, "This necklace is mine. The moon has abandoned him, but I don't." Moana, even with fear, approached slowly. "I'm not here to fight," he said, "but to return to the moon what is hers. If you keep the necklace, it is because you still care. Join us." Morguro stopped. For the first time in centuries, a voice listened to him without hatred. With tired eyes, he returned the necklace. "If she still wants my help, I'll go." Moana returned to Lumeri with the necklace in her hands. The city shone like never before. The moon, full and silent, appeared in the sky, and a beam of light came down to Morguro, wrapping him in peace. The queen hugged Moana. "You haven't saved the city just. It saved hope." Moana returned to the surface with a light heart. He knew that the sea had secrets that only revealed to those who heard with his heart, and that courage was not only to face monsters, but also to hear and understand, even those who seemed dangerous. One night, while resting in his village, Moana looked at the sky and noticed something different. The clouds danced in circles, the winds changed direction, and the migratory birds were flying lost. The elders said, "The wind lost its way." In that same dawn, a gale crossed the island, knocking down canoes and pulling out leaves from the palmeras. Moana felt the call, but this time, it was not the sea that called her. It was the sky. Right at dawn, she prepared a new vessel, not made to navigate the sea but to fly. With the help of the inventors of the village, he built a large wing with giant feathers given by Roller, to top birds, and strings made of resistant roots. She climbed to the highest cliff, and with her heart, jumped. The air chains held her, and Moana flew. At the top of the heights, he met creatures that few had already seen. The Decisions, beings made of wind and light, who controlled the chains of the sky. They were confused, disorganized, without direction. "Our center was stolen. The wind drum is gone. Without it, we don't know where to blow," they said. Moana asked, "Where was he last seen?" They answered, "It was taken by the rebel clouds. They wanted to run free and broke with the dance of heaven." Following the whirlpools that cut the clouds, Moana faced rain that fell the opposite, rays that danced like snakes, and thunder that spoke of riddles. In the center of the storm, he found the queen of the rebel clouds, a figure made of steam and silver rays. "We want freedom," she said. "We always had to follow the rhythm of the drum. Now we fly as we want." Moana was silent for a moment. Then he replied, "But even the wind needs direction. Freedom is not getting lost. It is to know where to go, even when it is free." The words played the queen. She freed the wind drum and asked, "What if I want to dance but also belong?" Moana smiled. "You can do both. The sky is big enough for new dances." With the drum restored, the ends resumed their melodies, the wind blown the right ways again, the clouds found their rhythms, and nature breathed in harmony once again. Moana returned to the island flying under the clean sky, being received with joy. Now she was not just a daughter of the sea, she was also guardian of the heavens. After restoring the winds and returning the rhythm to the sky, Moana returned home believing that, finally, everything was at peace. But that night, when walking down the beach, she found a gold snail, standing over the dry sand. When touching it, he heard a strange sound. Tick-tack, tick-tack. Time seemed to slow down. The branches failed to swing. The waves stopped in the middle of the air. Even the sound of the sea was stuck, as if forgotten to move on. Moana's grandmother appeared in spirit, smiling. "Something is stuck, Moana. Time is no longer walking. Someone hid him deep in the earth. Only those who have the courage to look back can free him." And then, with the golden shell in hand, Moana left, not by the sea, not by heaven, but by the heart of the earth. She followed a path of old roots, which led her to a secret cave in the mountains. Inside, each step led her to moments of the past, forgotten laughs, decisions that changed paths, promises made in the wind. In the center of the world, he found the guardian of the hours, an old being like time, with a cloak made of calendars and eyes full of memories. "Why did you come?" he asked, in a voice that seemed to echo from 1,000 years ago. Moana answered firmly, "Because the world needs to move on, and no one can live tomorrow if time is stuck yesterday." The guardian pointed to a giant clock made of stone and light. 3 pointers stopped, he said. "The past, the present, and the future. You need to rotate them, but beware. Each one shows a truth." Moana touched the first pointer and saw the day her village almost forgot the ocean. He touched the second and saw himself hesitating to leave in his adventures. Finally, he played the third and saw a future where no one else told stories. With tears in her eyes, she said, "Time needs stories to continue, and stories need those who have the courage to live them." She turned the 3 hands with her hands, and the world trembled softly. Time ran again. The trees shook, the waves broke in the sand, and the smiles came back as if they had taken a nap. The guardian smiled and said, "You not only have you returned time to the world, you reminded you why it continues." Moana returned to her village. Upon arriving, everything seemed the same, and yet different. People spoke more carefully. They heard more carefully. They lived with more intention. After restoring the time, Moana noticed something strange among the village children. They no longer played as before. They didn't tell stories or draw on the sand floor. Her eyes were open, but her dreams seemed to sleep. One night, when bedtime, Moana had a different dream. She walked over cotton clouds, and islands flew through the sky like silent birds. There she found a creature made of stars and mist, the dream guardian. He said sadly, "The children are forgetting to dream. The islands that are born of the imagination are disappearing, and without them, the world is colorless." Moana asked, "But why?" The guardian answered, "Because fear has taken over the dream portal. He whispers that dreaming is a waste of time, and the little ones are starting to believe." Moana knew she needed to act, and this time, it was not enough to row or fly. She would have to sleep with courage. The next night, with a lunar pearl necklace in his neck and the shell of time in his hand, Moana closed her eyes and entered the dream world on purpose. There he found a sleeping island covered by a gray fog. In the center, fear took shape. It was a huge being, made of doubts, shadows, and hard words that echoed as thunder. He said, "Who needs to dream when you can live in insurance? Dreams are fragile. They break." Moana looked around. The colored islands were cracked. The flying toys were fallen. The stories were dusty. But then she recalled, the stories only live when they are told, and dreams only grow when they are believed. She climbed into a stone and shouted to the children who dreamed in silence, "You still have stories within you, toys that have not yet been created, worlds that only you can imagine." The light began to emerge. A boy raised a cloud kite. A girl danced with an elephant made of stars. The fear backed away, getting small until only 1 grain of sand in a child's hand turned. The islands fly again. The colors returned to the dream sky, and Moana woke up with a smile. The next morning, the village children were drawing flying boats in the sand. They were running with leaves of leaves. They were dreaming, even awakened.